Last episode, we talked about the accidental manager epidemic in construction. Today, we're going to get into the mechanics of how this program actually solved the problem. Because the delivery model is what makes this work, not just the content. If you've ever sent someone to training and watched them come back and do exactly nothing different, this episode explains why and what the alternative looks like. All right, Bruce, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to this episode. Now, let's start with why traditional training doesn't work. You've got pretty damning numbers on this.
Absolutely, yeah. So traditional training, let's move out industry for a second, a couple of specifics. But training in general is not overly impactful. Almost 80% is lost, right? And if there's any retention of that, 10% if you're lucky, and that's purely from classroom. What we want to do is we want to change behavior through learning, and that's what this program is all about.
Nice. So it's not necessarily that the content is bad, it's really the delivery.
It's the delivery, big time. Because at the end of the day, what do you want to do in training, right? You want to disseminate or you want to transfer knowledge. But what's most important, and a lot of trainers actually miss out on this, is that when your learner goes out to the field, they maybe recall some core components out of that training, but 10% you're lucky if they do, right? And your training, the investment in training is too much, right, or too high to actually lose all of that valuable information not being applied.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, Bruce, how about you walk us through what week one looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big difference, before I get into the true detail, the big difference in this kind of training is that it's got a very significant field application component. So what happens is your folks come in, we do a 2, 3, 4 hour. We're not huge into these 8, 9 hour sessions every day. If we're talking specifically construction, right, we all know that 2, 3 hour bursts maximum per week are enough when it comes to classroom. Then once we go through, and I think what's very important to note is that the case studies that we're actually working on, or the theory, if a lot of people get scared when you say that word, is theory, but really customized for that particular industry, in this case, construction. And if we go even deeper, it's customized even further relating to that particular company, ABC, Interior, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So the classroom training is short, very powerful, very impactful. Well, here's the key, here's the magic, is when they get out into the field, the idea is to take what they learned in the classroom, as it's structured as an assignment, going out, applying what they've learned. And this is not just, Trevor, this is not just if you get the opportunity to, and if you don't do it, well, that's okay. We'll just continue the training. No. The training stops if that's not done, right? So the learner gets out in the field, applies this, and when they come back, which is typically the week after, some companies that we've experienced want every other week, so that's fine too. It gives them better opportunity to actually go and apply it in the field. And when they get back, we have that accountability session, right? There's no classroom session that week. In other words, new content is not delivered again that week. It's purely, let's call it a tailgate or a toolbox meeting, an opportunity for peer accountability both ways, right? And that peer accountability is where the learning takes place. So Bruce, the site super for X area, comes in and talks about his or her application of content. Did the assignment actually bring value, whether it succeeded or whether it failed or whether it was just, Right. And then you'd have other people or site supers, whoever's in the training, talking about the same thing. Let's say they succeeded and Bruce didn't succeed. Well, what did you do to get it to succeed? Okay. You twisted it a little bit. So it's not exactly the same what we learned in the classroom, and that's okay, right? Mm-hmm. But you made it for you and your crew, and it actually worked. That's where the key learning and application starts.
All right, Bruce, how about you break down what one of these field application challenges looks like in the real world?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key areas that we tackle in the training is accountability. And a big part of accountability, or setting framing a culture of accountability, it's not being a jerk and treating your employees in a bad way. But a lot of leaders are scared to approach, are scared to enter into conflict. They don't want to lose good people. They don't know how to articulate that correctly. And at the end of the day, it's just too much damn work to do that. So what do? I avoid, right?
Right.
And what we want to do, what we try to achieve in that, is to talk about, for example, some components around how to create accountability, how to hold people accountable, how to deal with conflict. And the reason why we want you to do that is because we need to get that stuff out of the way so you can produce results. And so we work on that in the first week, let's say that classroom week. And the assignment, because it's always there, the assignment is to go and produce that accountability in the field. How do I establish expectations, and how do I hold my guys accountable? But here's the key. How do I get them to hold themselves accountable? So when you have a self-supporting crew, a crew that's actually, if you think of your top A player in your crew, you say, man, if only I had more guys like him, right?
Yeah. That's always the argument.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And what this does is it actually starts getting the crew members, not all of them, right? There are certain people you're never going to change, but it actually starts getting them to do, it's like a self-serve, where they actually start seeing light. And what's even better, and what we've experienced over and over again, is that the supervisor or the site super really stops working that hard to try to get this to happen, right? They work a lot smarter. So we teach them the smart stuff that they can take, apply, and then start to implement. And then the next week they come back, or the week after, depending, they come back, and then we have specific assignments to report on, talk about, and then work on where things have not worked out well and when things have worked out well. So we can truly understand the thing when things don't go well, we can learn for sure. But when things do go well, we tend to do our happy dance, and then we forget about why it actually worked well or what made it work well. So we discuss those things in those tailgate meetings or toolbox meetings after.
All right. So sounds to me a lot like, really creating and developing culture.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that. There was probably in the late 2000s, I would think, around about 2009, there was the big saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And a lot of people were using, a lot of companies were using the buzzword at that time. And no one really, people understood the essence of it, but no one truly understood how could that actually reduce rework for me? Could that actually put a few points down back to my bottom line, my margin? So obviously when humans don't see the connection between the two, they don't do anything with it, right?
Yeah.
So it remains a buzzword. In this case, to your point, yes, it is. Culture becomes a tangible, live dynamic. And like we discussed in our last podcast discussion about this program, we actually start to measure the changes in behavior or the learnings and bottom line. So we start to see, like I had spoke to a client, a fellow client that we both know, spoke to him this week about one of their key areas of concern is rework. And their accountant mentioned to them that, if we could just squeeze out more by reducing rework, what could you actually do? You're growing at 19% year over year, which is fantastic, but growing top line doesn't mean you're growing bottom line. So the energy or thrust behind this training is to actually grow bottom line through training that actually makes that impact on culture.
All right. So week 2, the mastermind.
Yeah.
Maybe let's dig deeper into that. What does that look like?
Yeah. The mastermind is really the master stroke, I like to call it, okay. Right? And it makes all the difference in the world. And like I said earlier on, very similar to the tailgate or the toolgate, whatever people call it within their businesses, but it's an opportunity where people stand up, maybe not literally, but stand up, talk about what's working, not what's not working. Talk about if it's not working, what are we going to do about what's the commitment? And if it is working, can we all adopt it as a consistent practice? And this is where the cool part comes, that accountability or peer learning and peer accountability is so powerful. And also the key to alignment. One construction interior renovator client that I've been working with for years spoke about, this is all good stuff. And it wasn't specifically for this training, but talking about their leadership effectiveness in the field. This is all good stuff, but how do we need to get our leaders aligned? And alignment and consistency, you talk about culture earlier on, is absolutely critical. Reason being is because what is culture? Culture is language. And the consistency in how we talk and how we implement and execute, whether it's leadership, whether it's quality control, whether it's deliveries on site, whatever the case may be, how we deal with our trades, whatever, that consistency is important. So the tailgate or this mastermind is an opportunity for them to create that consistency, to create that accountability, commit to what's going to be applied in the field. Yeah. The crazy part, and some research, some Vistage research, before we actually developed this program, looking into some research, we're talking about knowledge retention traditionally at 10, 20% if you're lucky. In 2020, Vistage actually came up with just ginormous stats where by doing it this way, that retention drives almost to 70%, 75% retention rates. And that in the L&D or learning and development world, in the training world, is astronomical. So if you can imagine people that are listening right now or viewing the session where you've invested so much training into your people, whether it's your time as a guy in the field, a person in the field, whether it's bringing in consultants to do the training, or whether it's sending them to site super training, whatever the case may be, and the value that they brought back, if they brought back any value that changed something in the business or in their own division, can you imagine tripling that effectiveness, tripling that change of behavior? It's humongous.
Yeah.
Right? And then that just translates into bottom line. This is not a top line thing. This is a bottom line exercise. So by, one company that I've worked with, and probably about 5 to 6 years as well, we did this over 2 years, and we saw at least 2.5% increase in bottom line over that 2-year period, which is substantial if you look at bottom line margin.
Yeah, that is massive actually for any business. Like you mentioned earlier, top line is not necessarily your bottom line.
Right.
And this is really attacking the gremlins that eat the bottom line.
100%.
Yeah. Is that why you do toolbox meetings specifically?
Yeah, because the toolbox, again, this toolbox or tailgate or whatever you want to call them, it's the same as, when most good construction companies, when they start up in the morning, what's the idea? You get the crew together, you do your field level hazard assessment, whatever you do. But what the top tier groups or top tier crews are talking about, what did we do yesterday? What did we decide or commit to do today? How are we going to do it? What are we going to avoid? What are we going to strengthen? What do we expect? Right? That's a commitment with the crew. And the site super that's doing that with his or her crew is creating that synergy, that alignment. Good practice is to do that in the morning, midday, and at the end of the shift, right? This, from a leadership development standpoint, is something very similar and very familiar for people in the field, right? The idea is to create alignment and commitment and to see what worked, fantastic, what didn't work, that's okay, not the end of the world as long as it's not repetitive. Yeah. What are we going to do to prevent that from happening the next time around?
Okay, Bruce, now let's bring this all home, tie together with the 70-20-10 model.
Yeah, the 70-20-10 model, it sounds more fancy than what it is. It's something we alluded to last week, but really why it's so important is 70% is field, it's application. 20% is peer accountability, and 10% is classroom. When you look at traditional training, you flip that narrative completely, right? And the key component, just like we've been talking about this toolgate, tailgate, mastermind, whatever you want to call it, that's the majority of the training. The 20% is peer accountability. And we know very well in industry that, supervisory accountability, which, by the way, this has, and I'll talk about that in a minute, supervisory accountability, meaning that the site super reports to X position. So that second level manager, that is relatively strong, but the influence comes from compliance, right? In most authoritative positions, right? Where accountability truly sticks is when the peer group starts to hold each other accountable. And this is why we apply a good 20% to this in those tailgate meetings. But that 20% is based on that 70% field application. And then the last little thing that we have is that 10%. And that 10% is a minor, which is classroom, right? So that's the narrative that we flip, and that's where you get this profound increase in behavioral change.
Okay, so programs that are built this way, how much more effective are they?
Oh, we're talking about, like I mentioned earlier on, we're talking about a 2, 3, triple more effectiveness and that's not my opinion, right? This is research that's shown over and over again. The problem is that not many people do this, right? It's and this is where the thrust or the passion from our team, Workplaces team, has come from, is that enough's enough. We're seeing far too much pain in the construction industry when it comes to leadership and managerial effectiveness. People are not ready. And when they are ready, they just don't have all that they need to be that impactful. Yeah. So they burn out, right? And we've got people that are miserable, not enjoying themselves. So we needed to change this, and this is what we're doing so we can get that impact and we can see that 3 times triple effectiveness in training outcome.
Well, Bruce, that was really, really good stuff, really amazing. And I think that if more companies did implement systems like this, we can see a lot of change that can happen within an organization in a relatively short period of time.
Oh, yeah.
Just because you're giving them plans, you're actually helping them execute the plan. And the more that they do it, it's almost like a flywheel. So the more that they do it, the more that they want to do it, and they see the benefits of it and keep it rolling forward.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you talk about that flywheel component. It's flywheel is a great analogy. It's also, the way I also see it is that momentum. You can't climb to the 5th step if you don't at least take the first step or 2 steps, right? And you're right. It builds that accountability. So when people look back, they say, holy smokes, I actually did that. It's the best motivation in the world. Okay, well, you're ready for the next step? Yeah. Because now you've mastered that step, right? And that's the key.
Amazing. Yeah. Winning begets winning.
There you go. Well said.
Next episode, we jump into the actual content, Module 1, you, the manager and the leader. It's about identity, emotional intelligence, and why safety is a leadership identity, not just a checklist. See you next time.